All right. Well, shalom and peace to each and every one of you guys. I hope that you are just freaking out in the abundance of power that is being manifest all around the earth. It's been quite amazing. Almost every day, I'm meeting a new person that is in the beginning of an awakening process. Spent 2.5 hours in the rain yesterday talking to somebody who made some absolutely profound statements. They didn't know what it is that I'm teaching, but everything they said made me more than aware, and by the time we were done, them more than aware that none of that was coincidental. And so, as Source is going to continue this, we are in a liberation. And while liberation is wonderful, but for some, they will be liberated into, if you would, liberated into bondage, if you would. I don't know if that messes with your mind or not. There are people who are going to be freed into the non-freedom that they already exist in. And that's very difficult. So as many things that go along with this ascension and awakening that's happening all over the world, the truth that is coming out of every ancient text that has ever existed is all of a sudden beginning to be brought to a new light. And it's amazing because even something that I saw recently that was, and I think I'll share this maybe on Saturday if I can remember, when they went back and they found some writings that are Aramaic, and when they went back and studied the Aramaic for what was written supposedly in the Christian Bible as being the Lord's Prayer, there was nothing in the Lord's Prayer that you got in the English version that was true. Everything that Yeshua said was about us enlightening. Absolutely mind-boggling when you begin to hear that. So somebody then had to they had to place intention. We are going to interpret this so that it hides the truth. And that's an intention. Just as when you set an intention to do something good or to do something bad, you set a purpose, you affect the cosmic realm, if you will, with your intentions, many of which most people don't even know that they're setting intentions by the words and the thoughts and the behaviors that they do, but they are showing the universe that they intended to do something. They took action towards something, and that is your intention. Taking action towards doing something, good or bad, doesn't matter. It's still intention. And so I'm pretty stoked, man. Source has been freaking amazing, wonderfully kind, benevolent. It's on so many levels, it's not even funny. His light is just everywhere, bursting forth in the air. And so we're still dealing with, for a long time, Helena's initial writing, Isis Unveiled. Now, out of this, countless thousands of words were birthed out of this book. It is the message of today, if people knew what it was that was the message. And unfortunately, most don't, because most don't know why we need a message. If you possess all that is, and that is that Jesus came to be your Savior, and that is all that there is, then you can be really mindless and very good at it. But when you begin to understand the hidden truth in what Yeshua's journey here was about, which is namely, it's funny because it's totally tied to reincarnation, which most of you would never tie Yeshua with incarnation, but in a quick nutshell for people that might want some help or a gotcha moment, what was the purpose of Yeshua if he did not come to be our Savior? He came to show you that even after your body is dead, you do not die. You say, well, how is that? Because everyone in the world knows about the crucifixion. And nobody puts it to mind that he ended up over on the Sea of Galilee cooking fish for his disciples, and that body was destroyed. See, the hanging of the body on the cross was a metaphoric picture to you that you do not die when this happens. It's crazy. It's beautiful. It's right there in your face, and yet everybody's blind. And so we're going to pick up. I'm going to move backwards a little bit because of the intensity of this. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. If it overwhelms you guys, it's okay. The guy told me yesterday, he said, you know, sometimes you speak over my head. And I said, well, that's okay. Sometimes I speak over my head. When Source begins to give you truth, you don't always have all of the understanding. I think is in ways can be one of the perplexing things, because we as people want to know all the ins and outs and why it is and where it was and who it was, and Source absolutely in many cases doesn't have any desire to give you that information. It's not important. What is important is what did Source do, not why. Because Source can do whatever Source desires to do, because Source chooses simply just to do it. It's not necessary for you to understand. It is necessary, though, for you to believe, obey, and then walk it out. So, I'm going to come back to where we laid off. If you have the book, some of you don't, most don't probably, but on page 17 of ISIS Unveiled, the unveiling is going on even right now, dear friend. We are the unveiling of the secret message. And so to bring us into context, once again, part of the narrative is that Helena's picture is that science as we know science is not science because it doesn't include spirituality. In fact, all of your science scholars all totally tell you. That's why most doctors don't believe in a God, because they can't have spirituality and science work together, because spirituality always trumps science. Why? Because you don't get to know all the answers. Just know that I had a thought process and it manifested. It's science at the greatest level, but it's not. It doesn't register on a failed human mind level as science. And that's what all of these scholars she's talking about, in case you haven't quite been able to pick up on all of that. What she's doing is exposing to us is that there are many intelligent people out there who do not know the truth, quite honestly. And so let's see, and I hope that you'll pick up a piece. But I will tell you this also: if you will open your mind and open your heart and open your thought, you will begin to see as we go along here that there's going to be pieces that Source, not me, but the universe, that something I will say will mean 0 on your scale, and a week from now hit you between the eyes like a 12-pound sledgehammer, and it will have more meaning than you can deal with. That's the way Source is. I say he always gives me things not because he needs to know the answer, because I need to know the answer. Because I don't know the answer. And he loves us. He's not trying to hurt us, but he does expect exceptional people. We are supposed to be higher consciousness. That's not less conscious. Where you live now is less conscious. It's not acceptable to the Source. He wants higher consciousness, light beings who have minds that are like rockets and lasers, and they can pick systems and perceptions up, and they can make reality of that which everybody else is confused about. That is enlightenment. And so, as to practical results to be obtained by the investigations of geometry, everything that is mathematical. First off, everything is created. If you go study the Kabbalion, you go look at their picture of life, you go look at even what Michelangelo, all of the different geometric things that he used in his creation. He also was a mystic, just in case you didn't know. And so, as a practical results to be obtained by the investigations of geometry, very fortunately for students who are coming up on the stage of action, we are no longer forced to content ourselves with mere conjectures. In our own times, an American, Mr. George H. Felt of New York, who, if he continues as he has begun, may one day be recognized as the greatest geometer of the age, has been enabled by the sole help of the premises established by the ancient Egyptians. And just so you know, dear friend, the veil that was rent is you. The enlightenment that's happening right now on the earth is the tearing of the veil you were deceived about in Christianity. The temple that veil hangs in is you. And the temple is being torn that you might be able to see God who lives inside of you. Get it? And so, he has been enabled by the sole help of the premises established by the ancient Egyptians to arrive at results which we will give in his own language. Firstly, says Mr. Felt, the fundamental diagram of which all science of elementary geometry, both plane and solid, is referable to produce arithmetical, I did this last week, mathematic systems of proportion in a geometrical manner to identify this figure with all of the remains of architecture and sculpture, in all which it had been followed in a marvelously exact manner to determine that the Egyptians had used it as the basis of all of their astronomical calculations on which their religious symbolism was almost entirely founded. And today we still, with computers, cannot usurp what the Olmecs, Aztecs, Incas, Egyptians. Why does the false god, the low nobody god Yahweh of the Jews hate Egypt so much? Because he is in every way inferior to the mystic knowledge that they possessed. And if his people knew the mystic knowledge, they would never follow him. Remember, he's a jealous God. And so, all of their astronomical calculations are infinitely more accurate than what we are producing. That's crazy. And yet they're the stupid ones, right, that devolved and we're some supposedly evolved species. And so, on which their religion's symbolism was almost entirely founded, to find it traces amongst all of the remnants of art and architecture of the Greek. In fact, it is. To discover its traces so strongly amongst the Jewish sacred records as to prove conclusively that it was founded thereon. Judaism was founded off of a form of mysticism. You're nobody, you're not smart enough, and you never will be to deserve the knowledge of Kabbalahism. You are not worthy to know the hidden truth. That's why people like Madonna invest millions of dollars, because inside of her, she knows intrinsically there is something outside of this physical realm, and she desires to find out what that is. And if that means that you study the Kabbalah, you do it because you need the truth more than you need to live without it. That's what all of this. All of you who have no hunger for these things, it's okay. Just keep being what you are, because that's what you'll stay. But those of you who are hungry, oh, there's so much to feast on. And so, to discover its traces so strongly amongst the Jewish sacred records as to prove conclusively that it was founded thereon, to find that the whole system had been discovered by the Egyptian after researches of tens of thousands of years, into the law of nature. If you want to know the truth, friend, the law that you believe, that i.e. of the Torah, is yet again another smoke and mirror, dog and pony show to distract you from the laws that are unchangeable. And those, my friends, are the law of nature. They've always existed. They will always exist. And it's pretty crazy that it might be truly called the science of our universe, of the universe. Further, it enables him to determine with the precision problems, problems in physiology heretofore only surmised, to first develop such a Masonic philosophy as showed it to be conclusively the first science in religion, as it will be also proven to be the last. And that's what's happening where we are today, friends. Inevitably, when people begin to manifest at a greater level, and it's happening all over, people are doing spiritual healings. There's all kinds of stuff going on, friends. I'm just telling you right now what Yeshua said, and these signs will follow those that believe. They will lay their hands on the sick and they will recover. That's not much further down the road from where we are today. You want to really see what it looked like in Yeshua's time, just hold on a little bit, because it's coming. And we may add, lastly, to prove by ocular demonstrations that the Egyptian sculptors and the architects obtained the models for the quaint figures which adorn the facades and vestibules of their temples, not in the disordered fantasy of their own brains, but from the viewless races of the air. Ponder that for a minute. Does it really surprise you so much? Let's say if you had known these things that I'm sharing with you that Helena knew and taught in the 1800s. Let's say had you known that, would it surprise you so much that she was a channeler and that there are channelers popping up all over the place speaking for people from other dimensions? And yet we can go back and we can find that channelers have always existed in every recorded history that has ever been. See, they told you that Samuel was a prophet. They told you that Moses was a prophet. They told you that Jesus would be the prophet like Moses. What you have no clue of is you must take that BS line that they're feeding you, and you have to alchemically convert that from the lead that it is to the gold that it should be. And that gold is that the same God that talked to Thoth, and the same God that talked to Trismegistus, and the same God that talks to me talked to Moses. He was a channeler. He spoke for the voice of the supernatural. If Moses lived today, he would be on television, on YouTube, channeling voice. Wow. But because we were given some sacred holy cow that Moses was this thing, actually, there were channelers all over Egypt. But if you choose one, then you have to kill the others so that they don't usurp authority, because we are low dimension. And here you have to have somebody over you, or you have to be over someone. In the split that is coming on earth for those who do move on and graduate to the higher levels, there will be zero authority. Everyone will be at the same place, conscious-wise. What you see and what you love and what you know and what you desire will cease to exist, except in that low density reality that people will come in carrying karmic debt and live another lifetime and die and maybe gain a little bit and come back in and live another lifetime and maybe gain a little bit and die and come back in and live another lifetime and maybe gain a little bit and die ad nauseum until they finally reach a point of enlightenment. Now, whether that's 1,000 years or 10,000 years, who cares? In that time frame, there is no time. When we've been there 10,000 years, it's always so funny. I remember that song. That song is a metaphysical song. It's telling us that in that place, there is no time. When you've been there 10,000 years, it will be as if you just got here. And we used to sing that in my church all the time. Yeah, there was a lot more to all of this than I had any clue when I was a boy. I said it. I've always been a mystic, and now I know why. Because my grandfather was a mystic Pentecostal preacher, that is. And so, that adorn their facades and their vestibules of their temples, not in the disordered fantasies of their own brains. So just like the things that I've shared and the things that other people, guys, these things come as downloads to me. I say some of the most profound things, and I have no knowledge where that thing came from until source proves that what I spoke is true. It didn't come from me. It came through me. I've watched that a bunch. And so, but from the viewless races of the air and other kingdoms of nature, whom he, like them, claims to make visible by resort to their own chemical and Kabbalistic processes. Schweiger proves that the symbols of all of the mythologies have a scientific foundation and substance. It is only through recent discoveries of the physical electromagnetical powers of nature that such experts in mesmerism as Ennemoser, Schweiger, and Barth in Germany, and Baron du Potet and Regazzoni in France and Italy were enabled to trace with almost faultless accuracy the true relation between each theomythos bore to some one of these powers. A theomythos is if you would, in a generic kind of term, theo being God. A God myth is what the word that she's using there. That might help you some a little bit. This God myth bore to some one of these powers. The Ideic finger, which had such importance in the magic art of healing, means an iron finger, which is attracted and repulsed in turn by magnetic natural forces. For some of you who may not know this, do you realize that science has just discovered recently that the heart creates a 10,000 time more potent magnetic field than your brain does? Do you want to know what gives you more knowing than your brain ever can by 10,000 times is your physical heart? That's why when you hear things like Cryon of magnetic service, I've heard people make fun of him for saying that. And actually, it's one of the most pure truths that exist. We are all magnetic. And our magnetic field, it's sitting here right now, it's making this huge loop in and out of me. It's called your aura. And guess what? Did you know Mother Earth is at this very second doing the exact same thing? Did you know at this exact second that the sun is doing the exact same thing? So when I say to you that we are consciousness and we are the cosmos, it's energetically wise, it's absolutely true. We are. There is no distinction between you and me in consciousness. And that's really pretty if you don't like people usurping authority over you. And so each theomothus bore to some one of these powers. The Ideic finger, which had such importance in the magic art of healing, means an iron finger which is attracted and repulsed in turn by magnetic natural forces. It produced in Samothrace wonders of healing by restoring affected organs to their normal condition. And I'm telling you, man, this thing is going to be beautiful. If you don't do nothing else, and if my words in any way help become a beacon that God can look at and see, it will be that we are infinitely greater than we could ever have any knowledge of at the state and time that we're in, but that it will be borne out and proven that we have so much power. You can't imagine the amount of energy it takes to control us humans. Why, when you watch TV shows, if you watch anything that has to do with paranormal, why is it that across the hundreds boards, and I will tell you, mediums and psychics are not necessarily high conscious like what I'm talking about. They do have access to some higher consciousness psychic powers, as each needs to be. But many of them are not any more high frequency than somebody who has never had a psychic moment in their life. That is just the window or avenue that was opened for them. But why is it that across the board, if there is a negative intentioned spirit, why is it that people always get in fear and they immediately become weak? I'm giving you a beautiful protective self for you, friends. When somebody comes around you and they cause dissonance simply by walking into your aura, do not write that off. In fact, we must learn how to trust dissonance, both that you cause yourself and that other people cause to you. It is a sign to you that something here is not right. And if we knew those things, I promise you, half of the people who were your childhood friends, you would have never known their name because you would have stayed away from them. Instead, you let them draw you in and they suck your energy and you get weak, and then you do all the stupid things that they command you to. I'm learning right now about how do you command people to do things without ever saying a word to them. One of the most potent things that metaphysical people were given to use. Use it properly, it's a great blessing. Use it wrongly, you're no different than the demon that's sucking energy. Intention. What do I intend to do with this power that I am finding I possess? And it will mean the difference of everything for you. So don't take that question very lightly. I say to people all the time, this is the most important thing that's ever happened in your life. And people walk around like it means nothing. And so, how wonderful it would be, wouldn't it? I'm going to say when, I'm going to speak in the future, I'm going to seed the future in front. When you come into a place, and when we come into a place as frequency increases and as people find their balance, and there's much for us to learn, so please understand, this is not you wake up and you're a super person. You will actively learn these things every single day, one situation at a time. I don't like the way that felt, and you do it again and you say, I still don't like the way that felt, and next time, hopefully you will do what you can do to keep that, to avert that from happening. Everything is learned and everything is a slow process. We are learning how to be that which we have never been, which is high consciousness. Your mind is lazy and sloppy and never thinks about all the things that matter. And so you don't know that you didn't do something because you don't know you were supposed to do something. Are you seeing what I'm saying? It really, Source is calling these that will ascend, he's calling them to an extremely amazing level, folks. This is more than just some spiritual witchcraft woo-woo stuff. Although if you looked at Yeshua in today's manner, there would be Christians who would call Yeshua a warlock. So you might think about that. And so Barth goes deeper than Schweiger into the significance of the old myths and studies the subject from both its spiritual and physical aspects. And dear one, to be honest with you, they are both as necessary. You are out of balance without understanding that this physical realm is something, but also understanding that the spiritual realm is equally, or even in many cases, is the greater preponderance. But as inside, so outside. As above, so below. It never said when you get the above, you don't need the below. When you get the inside, you don't need the outside. Or when you have the outside, you don't need the inside. And if you think you can separate those things, you are sadly deceived. Because you can't. Better that we should make communion and come into alignment with Mother Earth. Right? And ground ourselves into her magnetic field, which then does what? It just bolsters our magnetic field. It's all important. It's important for you to go stand out in the sun and discharge negative energy out of you, but it's also important for you to be inside and discharge negative energy out of your actioning mind through thought processes. It's not one or the other. It's both. And so he treats at length of the Phrygian dactyls, those magicians and exorcists of sickness. And of the Cabarian theurgist, he says, while we treat of the close union of the dactyls and the magnetic forces, we are not necessarily confined to the magnetic stone and our views of nature, but take a glance at magnetism in its whole meaning. So all of the things that you're going to learn, folks, people have been learning this forever. You know, ask yourself all the things that Paul said. Why did Paul say all these weird things that really don't fit with Christianity? And of course, you were given an interpretation, but if you have a brain and can think for yourself, you can also overcome their interpretation. You're not tied to that just because that's what you were taught. We have a freedom to believe the truth. And so, then it is clear how the initiated, who called themselves dactyls, created astonishment in the people through their magic arts, working as they did miracles of a healing nature. And all of those things that were actually the functioning of the cosmos that your Father Source created have been condemned. I mean, they put them into television shows, you know, and I've never read any of it, so I don't have any clue what it says. Maybe it's true about that still, I don't know. But friends, we were and are supernatural energy people. And we've been robbed of that freedom because we've been told that that's horrible and that you must be bad. And people who can do those things, unless they're a preacher in a church taking your money, they must be evil. Right? I mean, you wouldn't care a bit if you went to church on Sun Worship Day while you were worshiping the Egyptian god Ra. Of course, you don't know that either, but that's what you're doing on Sun Worship Day, is worshiping Ra, the sun god of Egypt. And so you go to church and Ra, the sun god of Egypt, sends down benevolent healing mercy on you, and your cancer falls out in a lump on the floor, and nobody calls you a demon worshiper. But you let somebody outside of their group do some supernatural thing, and now that person is a demon worshiper. It came real revelation for me how this put together. I've seen supernatural before I ever went into Christianity as a grown person. And God spoke to me and has been speaking to me for 50 years without my knowledge, if you would. And he spoke to me before Christianity, he spoke to me in Christianity, and he speaks to me more now than he did then. And I all of a sudden got an epiphany, maybe this will help somebody. You know what? God doesn't speak because of religion. In fact, religion is not necessary to hear my higher self. I only have to tune my receiver to hear it. Do you see how they've controlled you in that manner? I was in the deep of that, as many of you that have been with me were, and you believe these people were some special gift, God gift, people that could come and do supernatural things, none of which were ever true. They were all a bunch of smoke and mirror dog and pony shows in your evangelistic Christian churches while they came and robbed you and laughed at you for being too stupid to know the difference. And I know, I've sat with them and listened to them. When in fact they should have been bringers of light to whoever they encountered and showed love and healing. How amazing is it going to be, dear friends, when all of the ego and all of the competition that exists is gone and people only love? Wow. You want to talk about heaven? Can you imagine what it would be like if you could walk into a gathering of 50 people and feel zero angst? We have a thing in our society that's called social society disorder. That means people are so screwed up they can't even go around other humans because they get so freaked out inside that they can't function. Can I tell you what it is? It's called low density. When you're light, you bring light and the darkness leaves, not darkness chases you off. Check it out. So, we're on this aspect. What if I told you that there were more supernatural healings done before Christianity? Actually, I'm going to say it even this way. What if there was more supernatural healing done before Judaism than there ever has been since Judaism was created? Did you know it's a true statement? It was not at all uncommon for people to be healed by spiritualists, if you use that term. I use it loosely, but I use it. And so, while we treat the close union of the dactyls and the magnetic forces, we are not necessarily confined to this magnetic stone and our views of nature, but take a glance at magnetism in its whole meaning. Then it is clear how the initiated who called themselves dactyls, we could take on that term as a dactyl as we become initiated, as we begin the journey of enlightenment. Creating astonishment in people through their magic arts, working as they did miracles of healing nature, to this uniting themselves many other things which the priesthood of antiquity was wont to practice. The cultivation of the land and of morals and the advancement of art and science and mystery and secret consecrations, all of this was done by the priestly Kabarians, and wherefore not guided and supported by the mysterious spirits of nature. Swacker is one of the same opinion and demonstrates that the phenomena of ancient theurgy were produced by magnetic powers under the guidance of spirits. Despite their apparent polytheism, multiple gods, the ancients, those of the educated class at all events, were entirely monotheistical, and this to ages upon ages before the days of Moses. In the Eber's Papyrus, so there's a text that you could probably look and find. The Eber's Papyrus, this fact is shown conclusively in the following words, translated from the first 4 lines of Plate 1. I came from Heliopolis with the great ones from Hetat, the lords of protection, the masters of eternity and salvation. I came from Sais with the mother goddess who extended to me protection. The Lord of the universe told me how to free the gods from all murderous diseases. Eminent men were called gods by the ancient. Did you hear that? Do you remember I showed you just a few weeks ago in the Gnostic text in the Nag Hammadi? We were told how we would be called gods if they knew what we really are? Now you have a totally different source. In fact, at the time she lived, the Nag Hammadi text had not been found. And so, eminent men were called gods by the ancients. The deification of mortal men and superstitious gods is no more a proof against their monotheism than the monument building of modern Christians, who erect statues to their heroes, is proof of their polytheism. Americans of the present century would consider it absurd in their posterity 3,000 years hence to classify them as idolaters for having built statues of their god, Washington. So shrouded in the mystery was the Hermetic philosophy that Volney asserted that the ancient peoples worshipped their gross material symbols as divine in themselves, whereas these were only considered as representing esoteric principles. So what were they? They were a picture for you to look at and remember the hidden secret. Dupuis also, after devoting many years of study to the problem, mistook the symbolic circle and attributed their religion solely to astronomy. Eberhard, Berliner Monischrift, and many other German writers of the last and present centuries dispose of magic most unceremoniously and think it due to the Platonic mythos of Timaeus. But how, without possessing a knowledge of the mysteries, was it possible for these men or any other now endowed with the finer intuition of Champollion to discover the esoteric half of that which was concealed behind the veil of Isis? From all except the adepts. And that's one of the things that we are getting to see, and you're going to get to see, you're going to watch it happen, and it's accelerating. The adepts, those people who are capable of functioning in this realm, and the initiates, that is because of the time that we're in, that is kind of starting to get flipped upside down a little bit. I said this 30 years ago. It was reminded to me that I had said this, that there would be a time on this earth when things that used to take you 50 years will now only take you 5 years. I said that at whatever the address on Miles Avenue in Austin, Texas was 25 plus years ago. And friends, we're living in it. For some of you, it seems like a long journey, but really you haven't even blinked your eyes and we've already come this far in the journey. It is fast. And for those of you that get overwhelmed, I move very fast. I'm a very high frequency person and I move very fast. And if you want to go where I'm going, you have to keep up with me. And that's your responsibility. It's not my responsibility to circle the wagons for every person that gets confused. And so I apologize when that happens, because it isn't at all what I like or what I desire. It's just that when you are going, you have to go. If the speed limit is 75, that does not mean drive 45. Okay? So please hold that in your thought process. You're not, if you will set your intention and align yourself with Source, I promise you, Source will continue to bring wisdom and understanding, and He will place it inside of you. Please hear that as a solemn promise. Source knows whether you're real. He knows whether you're pure. And if you're pure, then his soul love is to strengthen and bring along people, whether it be through other people that will be brought into your life. Maybe it was me that opened the door and somebody else comes in and fills in what the void was. Those things happen all the time. And so, the merit of Champollion as an Egyptologists none will question. He declares that everything demonstrates the ancient Egyptians to have been profoundly monotheistical. And see, we've been told our whole life. Well, the truth of the matter is, friends, is that there is only one force and one source, and there's never been but one source and one force. And everybody knew that. If we misread the signs that they left for us, then is that on them or is that on us? It's like reading a book of someone from an ancient time. If you read it and try to interpret that book from where you're living, you're never going to understand what they're talking about. And we've been fighting that since humanity existed, I guess. So sometimes we just need to take a break and we just need to say, this isn't about me understanding it in the way I can. This is about me trying to understand it in the way they did. And when you get there, then all of a sudden supernatural things begin to happen. And so the accuracy of the writings of the mysterious Hermes Trismegistus, which I showed you, the Kabbalion, whose antiquity runs back into the night of time, is corroborated by him to their minutest details. Moser also says, into Egypt and the East went Herodotus, Thales, Parmenides, Empedocles, Orpheus, and Pythagoras to instruct themselves in natural philosophy and theology. There too, Moses acquired his wisdom. How many of you bought the joke that was played on humanity that somehow Moses was in his 30s and had been brought up his whole life as a mystic, and all of a sudden, because he went back in the wilderness and watched over some sheep, he forgot everything that he had known and functioned in power his whole life? How many of you bought that? How many of you was a trout fish on that day in the stream and you bit the fly as hard as you could bite it? How many of you thought that it was some weird thing that Moses should go up on top of a mountain and talk to a spirit God, and that he was the only one that ever did that? Although we find that Paul went on the same mountain to talk to the same God, and we find that Samuel went on the same mountain to talk to the same God. Is anybody getting a revelation here? This has been going on since the beginning of humans, 300,000 plus years ago. It's not new. They just told you it was, and you believed it. But it's not. It's ancient. And so, Moses acquired his wisdom, and Jesus passed the earlier years of his life in Egypt. That's another thing that I was going to add to all the things that I'm really learning about the true Yeshua. Do you think it's kind of strange that the Bible says that God told Jesus to go to Egypt? I wonder why he did that. It was because of Herod, and he needed to save his life. But Herod was already dead by the time Jesus was born, so there's that piece. And so thither gathered the students of all countries before Alexandria was founded. How comes it, Moser goes on to say, that so little has become known of these mysteries? Through so many ages and amongst so many different times and people, the answer is that it is owing to the universally strict silence of the initiated. Another cause may be found in the destruction and total loss of all of the written memorials of the secret knowledge of the remotest antiquity. Numa's books, memorials of the secret knowledge of the described by Livy, consisting of treatises upon natural philosophy, were found in his tomb, but they were not allowed to be made known, lest they should reveal the most secret mysteries of the state religion. That's why these things, they found out that the Essenes were mystical by finding the Dead Sea Scrolls, friends. we got blessed to even enhance that further, because unfortunately most of the scholars have no clue that the Essenes were mystics. They're trying to make them be some creation, there's some pre-Christian thing. They were mystics. They functioned in supernatural power. They preserved the ancient way. That's why the Bible tells you, it commands you, if you want to know the truth, to be mystical, because it says that you are to search out the ancient paths. You know how many Christians that believe that that's the ancient paths of the Bible? Well, the Bible only goes back 5,000 years. How ancient is that when humans have been alive for 300,000 years? Maybe he meant a little further than 5,000 years. Like 45,000 years, and the same truth existed. You see, I'm telling you, I'm preaching more of the Bible now than I ever have. It just opened up once Source opened this thing up and removed a piece of the blockage inside of me. The Bible or teachings out of that book are everywhere. Why? Because they're ancient wisdom. They're not religious. They're ancient wisdom. And so when you begin to get that interpretation and that you encode the New Testament, oh my goodness, it just blows up. And so, you know that a certain sect burnt the Library of Alexandria on purpose, right? Maybe some of you don't even know what the Library of Alexandria is. You should thank your school teacher for being so competent at their job that you should be ignorant to the greatest library that ever existed, that also equally burnt all of the highest intelligence that mankind could put together from all over the world. It's very sad, honestly, how bad we've been duped. And yet we have to overcome it and learn to love in spite of it, because I have to tell you something, friend. You know, if faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by me hearing the words God is saying to me is how my faith grows, then you do realize there's no way they can ever shut you up. They can burn every book that ever existed, and the source still is capable of putting those downloads inside of you and give you complete knowing about something you've never studied. And he does all the time. And so they found these things in his tomb, and then they even further, he hid them so they would be protected. And then what did they do? They still get them and suppress them. But Source has a way of bringing that out when it's the proper time. So the Senate and the Tribune of the people determined that the books themselves should be burned. Oh, I see. That sounds like Alexandria. Maybe they've done this before. Which was done in public. Magic was considered a divine science, which led to her participation in the attributes of divinity itself. It unveils the operations of nature, says Philo Judaeus, and leads to the contemplation of celestial powers. In other words, if they're not careful, you will learn who you are. It's going to happen. It's already happening. Some of you are finding out very quickly that there is a lot of things that are just amazing inside of you, and they're becoming beautiful. And yes, of course, we're going to have struggles. And yes, of course, sometimes we get it wrong, and all of those wonderful things that make this experience in a human body so absolutely intriguing to a light force. But what is most important is that we come to the remembering that we are a light force. And if you can do that, if you can dare for just a second to believe that Yeshua wasn't a liar, and that somewhere in that godforsaken book that they call the Bible, that the truth really does exist, at least at some levels, then it's not so far-fetched. I asked somebody, I said, isn't it strange that Yeshua is the one that tells us that we are light? Did you notice he didn't teach a message with "you are the light of the world"? He didn't teach a message about you have to go to church and repent and you're really a sinner because of what Adam and Eve did, and that you really need bad forgiveness and you need a Savior. Did you notice that he just simply voiced to the world that you're already light? I wonder, where's the Christian prerequisites for this being light? I've been told my whole life I had to have Christian prerequisites like repentance and shame and pain and fear and death and judgment. But he doesn't offer that. How can the God that is the God who has a kingdom, who lives inside of me, how can he live inside of me when I'm so horribly wicked? But he gives us that the kingdom of God lives in you, not the kingdom of God lives in you after you die and sell all of your goods and give it to the poor. And he just simply notifies us that he lives in us. No prerequisites. No, you got to be saved. No, you're not good enough. Just simply that you are. How crazy is that? And so, wow. Philo-Judaism says, and leads to the contemplation of celestial powers. In later periods, its abuse and degeneration into sorcery made it an object of general abhorrence. So what was a good divine thing that people functioned in got turned by humans into something. And once that happened, friend, they have you in fear. You're now a devil worshiper. What did they do to those poor innocent girls, some of which were probably enlightened star seeds, if you would, that came to the earth, had the powers of healing. They healed people in Salem, and they killed them for being witches. That's how potent these lies are. And we still study that in school, the Salem witch trials. What if we would change that in the killing of the Salem starseed? It'd take on a totally different form. It would be that the behavior of those pilgrims would have been what was in abhorrence, not the fact that somebody had a divine connection and could supernaturally from the spirit realm heal someone who needed healing. Instead of rejoicing in that, we condemned it while we read the Bible and find out that Jesus healed people. It's just too crazy, man. And so, he says, we must therefore deal with it only as it was in the remote past during those ages, when every true religion was based on a knowledge of the occult powers of nature. It was not the sacerdotal class in ancient Persia that established magic, as it is commonly thought, but the Magi who derived their name from it. The Mobeds, the priest of Parsis, the ancient Gebers are named. Even at the present day, Magoi in the dialect of Palevi. Magic appeared in the world with the earliest races of men. Cassian mentions a treatise well known in the 4th and the 5th centuries, which was accredited to Ham, the son of Noah, who in his turn was reputed to have received it from Jared, the 4th generation from Seth, the son of Adam. See, you don't know those documents, so you don't even know at that level what the belief system of Noah was. You don't know that was what people did. Moses was indebted for his knowledge to the mother of the Egyptian princess, Thermuthis, who saved him from the waters of the Nile. The wife of Pharaoh, Batria, was an initiate herself. So the stage is being set for Moses being raised in this metaphysical, functioning, mystical, magical place. but was an initiate herself, and the Jews owed to her the possession of their prophet, learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, and mighty in words and deeds. Justin Martyr, giving as his authority Trogus Pompeius, shows Joseph as having acquired a great knowledge in the magical arts with the high priest of Egypt. Friends, Joseph was a high conscious person. He accessed the astral plane. Moses was. Yeshua was. So are you to be in the very near future if you continue on this journey. So, we've never looked at Moses like that before. I remember in my purity of pure Christianity is the only truth and only the Bible is God's Word. And I remember somebody saying that Moses was nothing but a shaman. He was nothing but a witch doctor. And oh, the Christian wrath that I had. Indeed, indeed. The ancients knew more concerning certain sciences than our modern savants have yet discovered. Reluctant as many are to confess as much, it has been acknowledged by more than one scientist. The degree of scientific knowledge existing in an early period of society was much greater than the moderns are willing to admit, says Dr. A. Todd Thompson, the editor of Occult Sciences, by Salverti. But he adds, it was confined to the temples, carefully veiled from the eyes of the people, and opposed only to the priesthood. Speaking of the Kabbalah, the learned Franz von Baader remarks, not only our salvation and wisdom, but our science itself came to us from the Jews. But why not complete the sentence and tell the reader from whom the Jews got their wisdom? So, at the same time that you've been brainwashed into believing that Yahweh was going to destroy all of the other gods, the true ancient wisdom of Judaism, the Kabbalah, came from Egypt. It's absolutely quite cool, personally. Wow. Origen, who had belonged to the Alexandrian school of Plotinus, declares that Moses, besides the teachings of the covenant, communicated some very important secrets from the hidden depth of the law to the 70 elders. These he enjoined them to impart only to persons whom they found worthy. St. Jerome names the Jews of Tiberias and Lydia as the only teachers of the mystical manner of interpretation. Finally, Ennemoser expresses a strong opinion that the writings of Dionysius Areopagita had palpably been grounded on the Jewish Kabbalah. When we take in the consideration that the Gnostics and our early Christians were but the followers of the old Essenes under a new name, this fact is nothing to be wondered at. Professor Molitor gives the Kabbalah its just due. He says the age of inconsequence and shallowness in theology as well in sciences is past, and since that revolutionary rationalism has been nothing behind but its own emptiness. And I'll start right there and pick up again next week. Are you seeing what's going on here, friends? There are people, even in her death, even in her life. Certainly you can learn much more about this through the Theosophy Society, still exists. It printed this book. It printed all of the books that she did since she started and created the Theosophy. We're in a time, and the time of enlightenment, I think could really be summed up a lot, and it's been a long journey. Many say that it just happened in 2012 or those kind of statements, and those were simply road markers along the way. But we've been in a coming into knowledge for hundreds of years. We had the hippie spell in the 60s. We had Edgar Cayce's spiritual. There was a huge upswell all around the world of enlightenment through Edgar Cayce. You go 30 years before him, you have Helena Blavatsky. You go 30 years before her, you'll find another teacher who was teaching the same. Source is not going to let humanity diminish without giving us an opportunity to make a choice. And each one of us, as I've said often, and for those of you, I don't want to apologize because there's no need. But for those of you, if you feel offense when I say to you that if you don't like your life, change it, that you're the one that created it, there's really not any other way to say that. And if that offends you, then what it might ought to do is be the red light that flashes for you, that maybe you've got a perspective in you need to look at. A truth that I learned, and it's absolutely been powerful, and everybody I've shared this with that listened, it actually stopped them. But have any of you ever noticed how, especially very egotistical, and most Christians I know are very egotistical, they're right and it's everybody else's fault. Have any of you ever noticed that when you're around someone and someone does something that really pisses you off, how quickly you can react to that? Can I give you a new little insight that will radically change your picture if you will let it? When you look at someone and someone is doing something and it pisses you off, that is the mirror of reality. And what you are seeing in them is you. And we don't like to take responsibility because we've been brainwashed into believing that it never is our fault. That's narcissism in a nutshell. America is the most narcissistic, and this time in humanity is the most narcissistic time that has existed. Why is that? Because the stage is being set for the destruction of narcissism. And so just like in a good war, you know how people will kind of be quiet and things go along, and then there's the day like, who was it, the shot heard round the world? Had they been fighting before that shot was fired? Absolutely. But that's the one, that was the turning point. Well, right now, friends, we're in the middle of a turning point, and the shot is being heard around the world. It's not accidental. All of the things that are going on in our solar system, all of these things that are buzzing around that very few people want to pay any attention to because the reality of what that might mean scares them to death. I do want to tell you though, if you don't understand what I'm saying, then I hope that I will goad you in some way. But one of the major differences between those people who do adjust their frequency to source frequency, the thing that is going to stop you the most is going to be fear, because you cannot be high frequency in fear. Fear is what is used to lower your frequency. And you've lived in fear your whole life so much, many of you would argue with me and tell me you have no fears. And can I tell you that's a dead giveaway that you're one of the worst. You're fearful of all kinds of things. You're fearful of what happens if you lose your job tomorrow. You're fearful of what happens if the check bounces. You're fearful of what happens if the tire goes flat on the car. You're fearful of what happens if you don't wake up in the morning. Your whole life is nothing but fear. And so you stay very low frequency, and guess what? You're just exactly where they want you to be. So as you go along and ponder, I would hope that if you're doing any shadow work, which is really just looking at yourself, and the only way you can look at yourself, of course, is to look inside and see, you know what? I have fear. Now that's a person who's about to experience wonderful things. I do have fear. And I now know that this fear is going to cause my vibration to stay low. And so I have to find some way to overcome It's fear that has been ruling my life. I blessed you and I love you. I hope you guys are having an amazing life. Some of you have told me that things are just exploding, and I'm seeing it everywhere. People I don't know, sources now starting to bring and are speaking with me everywhere I go about enlightenment. And so blessings to each and every one of you. I hope you'll take this seriously. It is an amazing time, certainly not one to be missed. Shalom. Namaste.